There's something nobody tells you about the people who never complain. They don't slam doors. They don't send long angry texts. They don't make a scene. They just disappear. Not physically, but emotionally, they're gone. And the worst part? They'll look you right in the eye and say, "No, I'm good. Don't worry about it." But something in their eyes tells a completely different story. If you've ever loved someone like this, or if you are someone like this, then what you're about to hear might be the most important thing you've listened to all year. Because here's what most people get dangerously wrong. They assume that quiet people are choosing to be distant. That the silence is a punishment. That it's manipulation dressed up as calm. But psychology tells us something far more profound, and far more heartbreaking. Today, we're going to go beneath the surface. We're going to understand what's actually happening inside someone when they shut down during pain. What drives it? What it costs them? And most importantly, how to truly reach them without pushing them further away. Stay with me. This one will change how you see people. Before we judge the silence, we need to understand the system that creates it. Your brain is wired for survival, not connection. And when emotional pain crosses a certain threshold, the brain doesn't ask for your permission. It acts. Dr. Stephen Porges, a neuroscientist at the University of North Carolina, developed something called the polyvagal theory. And what it reveals about human behavior is stunning. He found that our nervous system has 3 distinct responses to perceived threat, and emotional pain is a threat. The first response is social engagement. You're calm. You can talk. You can say, "Hey, what you said earlier really stung." That's the ideal state. Most conversations start here. But when the emotional intensity rises, when the words get sharper, the tension thicker, the system shifts. The second response kicks in, fight or flight. Your heart pounds. Your voice rises. You might say things you don't mean. Or you walk out and drive around the block for 20 minutes. But here's where it gets fascinating. For certain people, especially those with sensitive nervous systems, when fight or flight doesn't feel safe either, the brain activates its oldest, most primitive setting. The freeze response. Imagine your body as a circuit board. Too much current floods the system. And rather than let everything burn out, the circuit breaker trips. Everything goes quiet. Physiologically, their heart rate drops. Their muscles lock up. And most critically, the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the emotional processing centers of the brain temporarily breaks. In plain English, language shuts down. There could be 1,000 thoughts screaming inside their chest, and not a single one can find its way to their mouth. So when you stand across from them and ask, "Why won't you just talk to me?" you're essentially asking someone whose leg just gave out to sprint uphill. It's not stubbornness. It's not coldness. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, protect. Now here's the part that gets deeply personal. This kind of silence doesn't develop overnight. It's not a personality quirk someone picked up randomly. It has roots. And those roots almost always trace back to one of 3 places. Root 1, the lessons of childhood. Think about a child who's upset. Naturally, instinctively, they express it. They cry. They get loud. They reach out. But what happens when that expression is consistently met with "stop being so dramatic," or "you don't have anything to cry about," or worse, silence and withdrawal from the very people they love most? The child's brain, which is still forming, still learning, begins to make a connection. Feeling things out loud equals losing love. Showing pain equals being a burden. Being vulnerable equals being abandoned. And so they learn to compress it. They tuck the emotion somewhere deep. They build a quiet interior life and learn to function from behind glass, present, but protected. Years pass. That child becomes an adult. But the nervous system never forgot the lesson. Root 2, the aftermath of toxic relationships. Some people learn silence the hard way, through experience. Picture someone who once tried to open up to a partner. They were honest. They were vulnerable. They said, "That really hurt me." And instead of being heard, their words were twisted. Their feelings were minimized. They were told they were too sensitive, too reactive, too much. Every time they spoke up, the conversation somehow became about their flaws. Over time, the brain ran the numbers. Speaking up equals being used against me. Vulnerability equals ammunition. Silence equals safety. And so they stopped trying. Not out of weakness, but out of a learned, painful wisdom that this particular battlefield was never safe to begin with. Route 3. How their brain is simply built. And then there's a third group, and this one surprises people. Some individuals go quiet when wounded not because of trauma or toxic history, but because of how their brain naturally processes emotion. Psychologists distinguish between two types of processors. External processors think out loud. They need to talk to figure out what they feel. The more they speak, the clearer things become. Internal processors work in reverse. They need to sort through the chaos internally before they can say a word. Pushing them to respond before they're ready isn't just uncomfortable, it's genuinely cognitively impossible in that moment. For them, an intense emotional conversation is like opening 50 browser tabs on a laptop from 2009. The whole system freezes. Not because they don't care, but because they care so much that the processing demand exceeds the bandwidth. The silence isn't distance. It's the loading screen before the real conversation can begin. So now we know why it happens. But what is actually going on beneath that still surface? Because people tend to assume the worst. They think, they don't care. They've checked out. They are punishing me. Here are 3 psychological truths unfolding inside them, silently, while you're standing there wondering what you did wrong. Truth 1. Their mind is running at full capacity. The outside is still. The inside is anything but. Neuroscientists have identified something called the default mode network, a system in the brain responsible for self-reflection, memory, and imagining future scenarios. When someone who goes quiet gets hurt, this network goes into overdrive. They're not shutting you out. They're running 1,000 internal calculations at once. Did I misread that? Why did that feel so sharp? If I say what I'm thinking, will it make this worse? Am I overreacting? Am I not reacting enough? They replay moments. They analyze tone. They consider outcomes they haven't even told you exist yet. The stillness you see on the outside is the surface of a very deep, very active ocean. Truth 2. The silence is protecting you. This one is hard to believe in the moment, but it's true. Every person has what psychologist Dr. Dan Siegel calls a window of tolerance, the emotional range in which we can think clearly, speak honestly, and communicate with care. When someone is wounded deeply enough, they get pushed outside that window. And they can feel it happening. They sense the surge of something raw and unfiltered rising inside, the kind of words that, once said, can never fully be unsaid. The cutting remark. The unfair comparison. The emotional grenade they'd regret for weeks. So they go quiet. Not to punish you. Not to win some silent power struggle. But because they love you enough to swallow a storm rather than unleash it on you. That silence? It's the most disciplined form of love some people know how to give. Truth 3. Pressure makes it worse, every single time. Here's the most painful part of this whole pattern. The more you push, the further they retreat. When someone is already in emotional freeze and you follow them down the hallway saying, "Just talk to me. Why are you doing this? This is so unfair. Say something." Each word lands like a weight added to an already overloaded scale. Their nervous system reads the pressure as more threat, not as love or concern. And so the freeze deepens. Eventually, they might say something, but it won't be real. It'll be an exit line. Something to make the pressure stop. And both of you will walk away feeling further apart than before. So how do you bridge the gap without accidentally widening it? The answer is simpler than most people expect, and harder than most people practice. Presence without pressure. That's it. That's the key. Not perfectly timed words. Not the right therapeutic phrase. Not chasing them through the apartment. Just being there, without demanding anything in return. If someone you love has gone quiet, try this instead. Walk up to them, calmly. Don't loom. Don't cross your arms. Sit nearby if you can. And say something like, I can see you're somewhere deep right now. I'm not going to push. I'll be in the other room when you're ready, and I mean that. No pressure, no timer. Then, and this part is critical, actually leave. Don't hover outside the door. Don't send 3 texts in the next 10 minutes. Because what happens next is neurological, not emotional. When the external pressure disappears, the nervous system begins to defrost. Heart rate normalizes. Blood slowly returns to the brain's language centers. And they come back, not because they were forced to, but because for the first time, their silence was respected. That's safety. It's the only soil in which real conversation grows. Now, if you've been watching this and quietly thinking, this is me. First, I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not emotionally unavailable. You are not too difficult to love. You simply process the world at a different depth, and that depth is not a flaw. It's actually a kind of rare emotional integrity. But here's what I also need to say, because this matters. Silence protects you. But held too long, it can quietly hollow out the connections you're trying to protect. The people who love you can't read what's happening inside. And confusion, over time, becomes distance. So here's something practical you can start using today. Build what I call a signal sentence. Instead of going fully silent and leaving the other person stranded, give them a small, honest marker. Something like, I'm not shutting you out, I just need about 20 minutes to get my thoughts straight. I'll come back to this. I promise. That one sentence does something remarkable. It gives you the space your nervous system genuinely needs. And it gives the other person proof that you haven't left, that the conversation isn't over, just paused. That's not weakness. That's emotional leadership. Here's something worth sitting with before we close. In a world that rewards whoever speaks loudest, whoever fires back fastest, whoever wins the argument on points, quiet people are doing something quietly radical. They are refusing to let their pain become someone else's wound. When they finally speak, after all that internal processing, they don't throw accusations. They don't weaponize vulnerability. They say what they mean. Because every word has been tested, filtered, and chosen with care. When someone like this tells you they're hurting, believe them completely. Because that admission cost them more than you know. And when they tell you they love you, hold on to that too. Because it didn't come easily. It survived the silence first. These people aren't hard to love. They're just asking for something most of us struggle to give. Patience. The willingness to sit in the quiet with them. Without fixing. Without forcing. Just present. And when they find someone who can do that, they open up in ways that will take your breath away. If you recognized yourself in this, either as the quiet one or the one reaching out to them, drop a comment below. You don't have to say much. Even just "this was me" is enough. Because sometimes the most powerful thing is knowing you're not alone in this. If this video helped something click for you today, share it with someone who needs it. You might not know exactly who that is, but I think part of you does. Like this video if it brought you some clarity. It genuinely helps more people find it. And subscribe, because every week, we go into the corners of human psychology that most people are afraid to examine. I'm your host. I'll see you in the next one. To take care of yourself, and take care of each other.